Welcome to the AIX User Meeting number 2, the 3rd of August. Lots of items to discuss, so let's get started. This is just a document I came across. It's been updated April this year, live partition migration. Now, anybody that hasn't got the AIX logical partitions or virtual machines ready to do live partition migration, LPM, is stark raving nuts, I'm afraid. And a lot of work has gone into this, and this means that you can move your virtual machines between your physical machines. That allows you to evacuate a machine and do any repair actions or upgrades completely isolated from your workload, so there's nothing that can go wrong at that point. And when you bring it up, you can test it and you can bring it back. Why wouldn't you have that available? I have no idea. I just don't understand that at all. So there are some trickier areas. If you've got very simple logical partitions, simple dual path to VIOS servers set up, then it should just load and go. This document goes through all the badges, if you like, little things that can catch you out and stop it actually working properly. You can actually do a sort of pre-test of it, so you can do all the checks for the that it does before it actually does the migration, and you can see if all those are okay. Actually, in the document, I noted that it has the differences in here between base mode and Power9 full mode, and so that's something that Gareth talked about last time, so we won't cover that. And there is a video in the AIX in Focus series you can go and have a look at. That's a bit old, actually. I might refresh that as the user interfaces and things have changed slightly, but it's pretty good. Okay, that's it for that one. In the last 2 weeks, I think it was last week actually, it's difficult to keep track, we've announced some more Power9 hardware, the scale outs, the S922 and the S924. There's also the S914, which is an S924 with bits missing, so I don't bother with those. These are the two prime models, and they announced and available the 24th of July, so that's happened. So you can buy these now. Now, we collectively call these the G models. If you look at the MTM, the machine type model, then instead of ending with an A, they end with a G. So it's like a collective noun for the new models. A couple of things that have changed there. It was nice to see IBM upgrading these things, still committed to the product. But the PCIe adapter slots have all gone to Gen 4. I think in the A models, there were 5 or 6 Gen 4 PCI slots, and the rest were Gen 3. Now, when we go from Gen 2 to Gen 3 to Gen 4, each jump is doubling the I/O rate that goes out to the adapter down the PCIe slot. So that gives you quite a lot more performance. Now, if you put in a Gen 3 adapter into a Gen 4 slot, fortunately, the processor on the card and the motherboard will negotiate, and they'll say, okay, we can both do Gen 3, so we'll go down to Gen 3 speeds, because that's what the adapter is demanding if it's a Gen 3 adapter. Now, so a proportion of the slots came from Gen 3 up to Gen 4. Good old marketing people said that was a doubling of the performance to the I/O, and we all said, oh no, it's not. It's a doubling for those slots. It turns out that most of our adapters are Gen 3, so that it'll make no difference at all. It does give you the ability in the future that when Gen 4 adapters come out, then you can pop those into your machines and have forward upgrade compatibility. Now, Gen 4 is important if a particular adapter and all its ports are rated at something like 50 megabits a second. Then you're actually going to be limiting on the PCIe adapter. So the things like the Intelli channel, Gareth's going to correct me now, whatever it is, those very fast adapters that run at 100 megabits a second, that they want Gen 4, if possible, to go full bandwidth, otherwise they're being limited. And if you got InfiniBand, that's the I was struggling with some words like that. Next time I'll put it on the chart, but there we are. If you got 32 gigabit SAN cards, again they're getting up there to the 50 or 60 gigabits a second, and so they'll go faster if you can find a Gen 4 adapter. Okay. Also, we have some more disks at the front that can hold these U2 NVMe drives. So these are they are solid-state drives, but instead of going, coming out the back and going down to SAS performance to go into a SAS adapter, they're now going straight in NVMe, which is pretty near the PCIe level of speed, so that they're going out a lot faster, millions of IOs a second for each one of those. There's a new back plane for the disk back plane, and a new bezel for mounting them at the front, so all comes as sort of part of the kit if you want to upgrade your internal IO performance. If you're running SAN disks, then that may not affect you. Also, there's more NVMe options, more disks, sizes of things, and we also have some NVMe adapters which have disks on the actual adapter themselves. Some of those have RAID 5 features and that sort of things. So we've gone up now to 90 terabytes of disk space inside the machine itself under NVMe. So it's quite a lot of disk space for what is sort of lower end of the range. I don't want to say the bottom end of the range. There's a special for the RMI guys, a special one-core model, and your performance gurus will be saying, "What? No, we're going to have 24 CPUs in the S9T4. Is it 20 or 22 now in the S922? And that bring out one with one core." Now, that's because a lot of the IBM i clients, they take the smallest box possible, and they have the workloads. The workloads on an IBM i are very, very efficient, but if you like, that machine's only going to be running everybody in a room. They may be, I don't know, an estate agents or a solicitor's office or something. They don't need great big computers. They're having a little one in the corner. It's probably standing upright. So that's good for them. It means that the IBM software costs go down if it's only got a single core, and so a lot of customers might find that popular. And it's funny, in different countries, there's different interests in these. I know that in Italy, they're all over these very low numbers of cores, individual boxes. It's quite a feature of the country. The next thing, which is probably the biggest thing on the list, is the Power Enterprise Pools 2.0. What the .0 means, we've no idea. And there's another mistake in the name as well. We've had this feature for the enterprise machines for quite a long time now. It came out maybe 2 years ago as an improved, and a lot of big customers are doing that. And the word that enterprise means it's the E950s and the E980s. So we're already talking big boxes costing a lot of money. And instead of licensing the CPUs on each of those boxes for what you guess you're going to need, you have a pool of licenses for CPUs, and you can allocate them to the machines. And if you can shut the machine down, you can take those CPU entitlements and put them onto another machine and then run the workload on a different machine. I mean, that's the whole point. It's very flexible moving across. And then if you have guessed your sort of basic requirements, but then you're creeping over this, maybe your business is growing, or you've just done an advert on the TV, and whoa, loads of stuff coming in. You can very quickly switch on extra CPUs, or you can have that automatically done. It does take the extra CPUs out of your quota and just switch those on for you. And so you can go over these peaks and then come down, or you can just leave them switched on if that's what you want to, because all your workloads have actually gone up and stayed up. So it's a very powerful feature in there. It stops you limiting all your licenses to particular machines. It's just a great big pool of machines, and you can move the CPU entitlements around as minute by minute basis. And when you go over your base entitlement, it's actually charged by the minute. So if you have a busy half an hour, you only get charged for the half an hour on those extra 10 CPUs. And then 1 minute later, well, we're not charging you for those. You're not using them anymore. So it's quite a powerful feature. And so now that's being made available on our scale-out machines. So it's really Power Enterprise and Scale-Out Pools version 3 in my book, but that's marketing for you. That's what we've got. Right. With the smaller boxes, there are some minimum sizes. We don't want you to buy one core and just pay for that. So there's a minimum of 8 cores out of the 24, and it doesn't apply to memory. For the enterprise machines, we can also do the same for your gigabytes of memory. Switch those on as you need to and switch them off again. But that means on the CPUs, on the scale out, we can manage them all as a pool. Now, there's a big discussion about what is a pool and what isn't a pool. Of course, if you've got CPUs on an E980, they're very powerful, the best we've got, and they're in a pool by themselves. The same with the E950, I believe. And so it'll be a different pool for the scale-out pools because they're cheap and cheerful CPUs carrying very different prices. So although you're running one PEP, the PEP, you'll have 3 different pools of CPUs that you can use across those particular machines. The other thing that we noticed is that the Power Enterprise pools is only available for the new G models. You can't apply this to your older machines. That actually makes some sense because your older machines, you bought the CPUs. They're already there and switched on, all of the ones in the machine. So you don't really want to go higher than that because you haven't got the CPU cores to jump up higher. But there we go. What do we got down in here? Yeah, okay. Just highlighting the features of the S924 at the bottom, if you don't already know. In the bottom right, like a little picture here, this is actually put a tweet out and a LinkedIn blog on this. So if you see little pictures down here, then you may have already known all this, but I didn't talk you through it all. Now, the RPERS, this is the rating that we have for our machines running AIX. It doesn't apply to Linux or IBM i. I've updated the script because they had some new features out. The S922 went, it was peaking at 10 CPUs per Power9, and you can have 2 of them, so it's 20. They've now got 11 as allowed, keeping us in the temperature envelope still. And so I added those. But there are no new RPERFs for the Model G models. I think there's 2 reasons for that. It's an awful lot of effort for IBM to do that. We haven't changed the CPU gigahertz or the number of CPUs, and we haven't changed the amount of memory. So it's unlikely to have a big performance difference anyway. And it means the benchmarks that we run to generate the RPERFs are not greatly affected by the Gen 4. You're already using some Gen 4, but the extra slots don't actually help us at the moment. Internal disks, well, I guess a lot of our benchmarks on which these are based are SAN-based databases, for example. So the internal disks are booting the VIOS server, maybe doing some local caching and things, but otherwise we're not using them very much for performance reasons. Okay, and I just added, actually 10 minutes ago, on the Power Systems virtual user group, there was an hour-and-a-half session there, and it took them an hour and a half to cover what I just covered in 10 minutes. But anyway, there we go. Next up, there's a Redbook on these new machines, and great big wordy title, and the new ones featuring Gen 4. Well, we had Gen 4 before, but let's not go there. But there's a Redbook there already that includes updates for these new models. Another thing since last month, it's a long-term standing document called AIX Strength to Strength. Started literally 25 years ago or thereabout. Somebody called Jay Kremke, he was the AIX manager for decades, really. He's left the company now. He now works at Suzy. There we are, strange world. He fancied something different. But anyway, it fell offline. It used to be on the internet and it was, IBM. It's been moved. We moved all the websites all around, and it didn't manage to make the jump. So we put it back online. There's a link to it if you want to have a look at it. I find it quite useful. I talk about things like active memory expansion. Well, I don't know. I can't remember when it came out, but it's in the Strength to Strength document. It'll tell you when it came out and when it was upgraded and those sorts of things. We mentioned last time that AIX in focus on YouTube, and I've been busy there. So on the right-hand side, I put the video from last time's session on the YouTube, and the one for nmon that follows on in an hour and a half's time. So that's really cheating, isn't it? But we've also added 2 on XIVE and active memory expansion, a bit of an update. And this is the current list of things. We've got a couple more coming in here. These are all the ones in the AIX in focus. And I need to add 2 more. That's a shame. I've only got 1 space. I have to jiggle everything around to make enough space on this chart for the next time. So one of them was the active memory expansion update. So you've got a direct link to it here. So AME came out a good long time ago, 2010. And it is, if you don't know, at the bottom, it's purchased per server. It's an option for a server. And then all the AIXs on that server can switch on this active memory expansion feature. And I can't remember if you've covered it last time or not, but there's now a video out in here. Maybe I'll cover it in more details. But the very basic is, when it came out, it was all 4K pages. But a lot of people like 64K pages, particularly with relational databases and things. And AME had to just do 16 4K pages to compress your memory pages. So that wasn't quite so good. But the update switched on 64 kilobyte pages. Then we also have, with the Power 8 and the Power 9, we have accelerators built into the actual chip. And on Power 9, that's even stronger, 6 times more cost effective for memory than the original. Now, the way I've calculated that is that over that 10 years, the machines are roughly have 16 times more memory in them than they used to, but the price is still the same. So when you used to buy this feature, I've no idea how much it cost, to be honest, but say it cost 5K, and that gave you 16 gigabytes more memory. Well, now it's like 600 gigabytes more memory on your modern machine. So it's actually got even more cost effective. And if you're running AIX, anything you're running now, I hope nobody's running AIX 5 or even 6.1, there'll be an AME pat command, and that will tell you, with your current workload, you should run it when the machine is busy, tell you how much extra memory you can get and the CPU costs for doing that. The CPU cost has gone down because of those accelerators. So if you look at that and have a little play, and you want a copy, ask IBM, and we'll be happy to sell that to you. And you're getting a lot of very, very low cost effective memory. Okay, the next one is XIVE, External Interrupt Vector Engine. And this reduces the interrupt overheads for virtualized servers. At the moment, before this, we have to interrupt a processor to say, here's an interrupt from the hardware, and it goes into the hypervisor. The hypervisor says, oh, right, it has to go to that virtual machine, and you interrupted the wrong virtual machine. There's like a small chance that you accidentally hit the right processor to handle that. So then it has to reschedule the interrupt for the right virtual processor to go into the right logical partition or virtual machine to actually handle the interrupt. Well, this piece of new hardware in this machine actually lets us do that. That's always been there in the Power9 chips. It was enabled in the 940 firmware, and just looking at the time, we're going to run out of time, and it's there to go. And everybody says, well, how much will it save? I didn't say 4 or 5%. Okay. This is a look at our marvelous operating system, all the fantastic parts in here. I'm still working on the advanced O commands and the toolbox commands. I'll come back to that a bit later. So I've had a failure in my computer room. I don't know why you want me to tell you about this, but anyway, my Raspberry Pi failed. So you can see here, it's got 5 temperature probes on it, going to various places in the computer room, like down the air conditioning hole and the room temperature, and then 3 of my important machines. And the Raspberry Pi suddenly started returning zeros. It's some glitch on it, so it's reporting the wrong temperatures. Eventually, with coronavirus, I had to persuade 4 managers that it's okay for me to go into the office. And I powered it off, powered it on an hour later, let it cool off, and it worked. Way! It worked for 3 days and then went wrong in a different way. It actually fell off the network. So we've got this line in here, a straight line, because there were no matrices. And I went back in, and it turned out the micro SD card had failed. Now, fortunately, I cooled it down for 2 hours, and I managed to read all the data off it. So I put a new card into my Raspberry Pi, and off we go again. And when I talked to my colleagues here, they said, "Oh yes, it's a well-known Raspberry Pi problem. These SD cards don't last forever, and some people have mechanisms for plugging an SSD into the back of it to get more reliability up." And we also noticed up here, look, these peaks are going up and up and up and up, and we thought, "Oh no!" It turns out the outside temperature in London was going up and up and up every day. This is the peak day. It's now come down 10 degrees or something, and the computer room's cooled off, so that wasn't a problem as it happens. But it does remind you that RAS is only important when you hit that failure, and then it's absolutely the most important thing on the planet. If you had more reliable kit, you wouldn't have actually hit the failure, so that's an important point. And Raspberry Pi RAS is nothing like Power RAS. We've never had a computer that just stopped dead in its tracks in the 15 years or so we've been running our computer room. Okay, mentioned this last time, Ansible for AIX. So in the open source toolbox for AIX, we have a version of Ansible. That is, well, it's in the open source toolbox. That's the open source version. It's also known as the engine part of Ansible. Red Hat you can get an enterprise class. You need to run that then on enterprise, where you can control AIX. We have the playbooks for AIX coming from Red Hat. They've all been certified and they'll be supported. Ansible also comes as a thing called a tower, which is a graphical user interface for kicking in lots of workloads. If you've got hundreds of machines, it can let you get organized. Well, the tower part, when it's open source, is called AWX. That may be the wrong way around. I think I might be right. Yes, it is down here. And that's available for POWER9, but it's only available for running it on Red Hat on Power 7 or 8. Our friends at Power DevOps have compiled that up for us. So if you want to give that a go, okay, it's not AIX, but it will allow you to control AIX in the graphical user interface. I think that's a bit of a plus moving forwards. I've also had there's a guy called Grover in AIX support. So I tend to call him level 5 support, and normally he's only 3 levels. So he's really guru status in my books. And he was asking me about this. If you run the lpar stat command with the -e, it's giving you these overclocking rates in here. We're going 19% overclocking is the one I call it. So we're not allowed to say that officially. But at this top line, it says dynamic performance mode, and all our computers come in max performance mode by default. So people. Well, he was actually getting complaints from customers saying dynamic performance mode. We want that to say maximum. And the answer is it's a well-known bug. So if you see dynamic performance mode in Power9, that's okay. It's a spelling mistake. And I don't think the guys want to go and fiddle with all the commands and maybe the firmware and maybe the HMC to change the name, as they just say it's a cosmetic detail. So don't panic if you find dynamic up in here instead of max. Okay, that was a quick one. Okay, now we look at the support dates in here. Of course, for AIX 6, it's on the way out, guys. Regular support finished 3 years ago. You will have purchased extended support. If you haven't done that and you phoned up IBM with an AIX problem with 6.1, they'll say, sorry, you're not supported. I'm not sure if they're as rude to put the phone down, but I probably would if I was sitting there. And then, so that's disappeared. There was additional extended support for Power 7 machines. That's ending next month, so be warned. Then the Power 7 Plus machines have got another year and a half or so on Power 8. 2 years out there. Well, 21 months. On the AIX 7, we're still okay in here. Should be up to the latest, and the extended support will start coming in next year. So upgrade to 7.2 when and if you can, and then you'll dodge the extra costs. I actually prefer you to pay extra money because that helps my pension plan. Right, I put this slide up last month, and there's a typo in here. I looked on the website for downloading new software, Fix Central, and it says September the 30th, not November. Whoa, that's quite a big mistake. I hope nobody's planning on my mistake there. So this is September. That's 2 months away. Less than that. Well, it's only 3 days less. So do start looking into that. Everything I know is on this web page in here, upgrading VIOS Server 3.1. And I think I've got another slide in here. Yeah, so you've got 7 weeks to do this or start negotiating for extended support. It's not like a fixed price thing. So, don't run out of days to get this fixed, because letting your VIOS server go unsupported might cost you your job if you're a systems administrator or an operator. Yeah, I've warned you. Right, now I'm available for people that are on this call. So if you want a WebEx or a Zoom, and we can discuss your needs or sanity check your plans. Some people, customers have been asking for this, and they said, is this really true? And the answer is yes. And they said, what's the best way to upgrade? Well, it says on the web page, but you upgrade your VIOS server to the very latest. And I changed the best practice there. So instead of saying 226.32, because 40's come out now, and they, well, shall I go to 32 or 40? It now says the latest level. And then you run the command on the VIOS server to do the upgrade. That's my low-hanging fruit. But if you want that, just get in contact and we can have a little chat, talk you through what you're doing and does it make sense. Right, I've also written a blog on this. This is a customer question in here. So they got nmon, and they actually have multiple instances of Oracle running on one particular virtual machine. And by default, what nmon will do, if you put in the -t option, it will gather the top process stats. When the analyzer or nmonchart comes in, it finds all the commands with the same name are all grouped together. And so when you're looking at how much memory and CPU this is using, this is all the Oracle processors. Oracle has a peculiar thing that all the processors have the same name, the same binary. They have different names because there's links. And when it starts up, it checks what name it was called, and it works out, right, is this the log server? Is this the crash daemon? Is this all the other bits and parts of Oracle? But they all come in. They do that because that reduces the copies of the Oracle code in memory. So it actually saves memory. So by default, you just see one thing called Oracle. But if you want to break that out, we can go through the user arguments parts. If you used a capital T when you called nmon, then we go and find out the processes that actually have payroll or whatever the instance name is. Then we can put that back into the process stats. And then here's an example there. They actually got 4. There's 2 here using CPU and memory. There's 2 more over here that are just ticking over, hardly doing anything. But that allows us to see which one's using the most CPU power and when. So that's quite an interesting article. It's just got a shell script that does that for you. This is no change. Information from me and Gareth. Then we have, we've got this project. I keep trying to have a go at this. If you've got an older AIX with open source, so the RPM packages, you may have mixed them up from various sources. There's an old toolbox from IBM. There's Persil.org. Bull had some stuff as well. And so people were mix and matching and finding where they could find a RPM and installing that. Eventually you get into position, like I was trying to upgrade my machine that's literally been running 15 years, maybe actually 20. And I've been at RPM quite a long time, haven't I? Okay, so I installed Yum, and it's saying, no, you can't install this package because that tool demands an older level of an RPM than I need the update. And then you say, okay, well, I'll delete that tool and say, oh no, that's got prerequisites for these are the things that have to go upgraded as well. And if you do this, then is my Apache server had to be removed, which is probably not going to help it. Apache actually serve my web pages out. So you get into this sort of locked up way of you can't go forwards and you can't go backwards. Now, I have been trying this. I was recommended that just delete all your RPMs, install the Yum package, and then you can use Yum, and it sorts out all your prerequisites and go back installing the things that you actually need. The trouble is it exposes some hard mistakes. And I did this, and then it said, no, this library doesn't exist, or it hasn't got the right thing in the library. And I think, you know what? I remember having a really strange problem with that, and eventually I copied the binary from another machine and overwrote it. And so you delete all the RPMs, and then things won't work. So I'm still working on that. So if you're working on that, do let me know. We can exchange some notes. I think I've got a solution for doing it a clean way, but I ran out of time to get that ready for today. Okay, now one feature, I had an AIX guy send me an email. He remembers some sort of command that could reduce memory on the machine. And here it is, RMSS. It was a really great tool in its day, Reduced Memory Size Simulator. It effectively, if your memory is all used, and it typically is because it's trying to avoid I/O, it will actually page out 4 gig, and then it actually locks it in the kernel, so nobody can actually use it. So it just looks like the machine has shrunk by 4 gig. And then you could run perhaps a benchmark again, and then you can say, okay, let's take 2 more gig out, and we shrink it again, and then you can see if you really need that memory for your performance and things. That's what I was using it for. But I went to the command and just typed in the name, and it says, no, the RMSS command is incompatible with DLPAR. Oh dear. I'm not sure if, yeah. I did run into problems. If you keep taking memory out of the box and you go below about 2 gig, it can get into some really flaky problems because it's running out of memory just to keep the basic AIX running. So do be careful with that one. I don't think I can recommend that anymore because everything is going to have DR available to you as long as you set up your HMCs properly. Okay. So I always had this problem. I just want to raise it again. How can we raise the profile of AIX, explain the brilliant new tools to newbies, and remind the old guys, we take a lot of things for granted with AIX, and maybe we should go around the computer room and point out the fantastic things about AIX, because AIX is the best operating system in the world, bar none. And it's official. That's my official statement there. You can quote me if you like. You can tell I'm probably winding down in here. So that's the end of this one. Again, if you got ideas or questions, then do let me know. If you got a favorite topic you want to talk about, just a few minutes. We don't want you to come up with an hour's worth of slides and carry on talking like I have to. Then that's fine. We'll invite you in. Next meeting, first week of September, the 7th. That's the day after my holidays, so it might be a bit rough around the edges. And don't forget, I've got another call coming up, NJMon and nmon meeting, if you're interested in that, in just looking at the time, it's just under an hour, 55 minutes or so.